Greetings, my fellow Fright Fiends. It's your buddy Boogeyman Ben here for a new episode of Boogeyman Ben's Horror Zone. Today's video is going to be my thoughts on the remake of Pet Sematary. Now, this remake has been a long gestating project. This is something that I heard about probably about as far back as 9 years ago. There was rumors of a Pet Sematary remake, one that I was really against. This is probably, next to the Fright Night remake, this was probably one of the remake rumors that I had the biggest problem with. Back in 2011, I talked about the remake briefly, back when I did a retrospective on Pet Sematary 1 and 2, and I was talking about the Unearthed and Untold, the Path of Pet Sematary documentary that had been, they started filming at the time. I've done 2 trailer reviews, one on the first trailer, which I wasn't impressed with. The second trailer I was more impressed with because of the twist on the familiar story. I thought that they gave away way too much in the actual trailer. And of course, this new film is directed by Kevin Kulsh and Dennis Widmeyer, who have done the film Starry Eyes, a film that I am a huge fan of. And the screenplay for this film was done by Jeff Butler, who people might know from Midnight Meat Train, and Matt Greenberg, who's known for Halloween Age 20. And the film stars Jason Clarke as Louis Creed, Amy Simons as Rachel Creed, you have John Lithgow as Judd Crandall, and Jate Lawrence as Ellie Creed. So for this review, I have no choice but to talk about a couple of spoilers. For people that missed the second trailer, I kept that review of the second trailer as spoiler-free as possible. For people who have avoided that, there is a very big change in this film. And it's something that I thought was a really good idea. If you're going to remake a film, I feel like you need to do it with a different voice. You don't want to try to emulate what has come before. And as I've said in many videos, the original Pet Sematary is one of my favorite films of all time. The 1989 film, which came out 30 years ago this month, which is fucking crazy. I went and saw for my 15th birthday. It has always been a favorite of mine. It traumatized me as a teenager. It's lasted 3 decades. It still impacts me tremendously when I watch it, and I love everyone in that cast, despite some of the criticisms towards especially Dale Midkiff and Denise Crosby. I think the film holds up fantastically well. I love the haunting score by Elliot Goldenthal. I love that it's almost got like a children's fairy tale vibe to it. The fact that it was shot in actual Bangor, Maine, and some of the surrounding cities, I just think it gives it a very different quality than most Stephen King films as of late, and back then, because it was the first film of Stephen King's to shoot in Maine. So what did I think about the remake? Did it disappoint me? Do I think it was necessary? Does it bring anything new to the table? I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed this film. I still think the original holds up. There's a lot of people that are saying that the original is dated now. But for me, I think they did a fantastic job of retelling the story through a different lens, of retelling it through a different voice. I think everybody in the cast did a fantastic job. I've always been a fan of Jason Clarke, and I really liked him as Louis. He played him very differently than Dale Midkiff did, and I really bought that he was this, kind man, and the trauma that he goes through as the story unfolds, I really thought was really well done and believable, and you see him slowly kind of go mad based on the situation that happens. Amy Simons did an okay job as Rachel. A lot of people were saying she was like one of the highlights of the film, and for me she wasn't. Not that she did a bad job, but I just wasn't really, her character didn't grab me like I thought it would. She did fine with the material. Her performance just didn't stand out to me as much. The big one for me was John Lithgow. Fred Gwynne is so iconic as Judd Crandall. Even when I read the book, because I read the book after I saw the original film, I saw Fred Gwynne as Judd. But John Lithgow really brought something different to the table. I think he did a great job in the role. I've always been a fan of him, and I think he was fantastic in this movie. The thing that I did like, that there is a change in terms of the relationship between Judd and Ellie. In the original film, there wasn't really that relationship. I mean, outside of like a couple of conversations, and he tells her this is the place where the dead speak, and it was a safe place. Outside of that, in the original film, there's not a lot of interaction between Ellie and Judd. Maybe, and there's like maybe a couple more scenes, but other than that, it's not this relationship. In this film, Judd and Ellie have a much tighter relationship. In fact, I think the relationship between Judd and Ellie was stronger than the relationship between Louis and Judd, which was a very big change from the original film. And Jate Lawrence was fantastic. I absolutely loved her in the role as Ellie. I think she did a fantastic job. The pace of this film was very well done. There is some really cool shots in this film. I think the directors did a great job of capturing the feeling of this Pet Sematary, and there's like this whole ritual scene where these kids almost like they wear these masks as they're marching towards the cemetery like a procession. There's some really good imagery that I think was added. It was something that wasn't in the original film. And the film plays out very differently. It is not a carbon copy of the original 1989 film. It starts differently and it ends differently. And I thought that that was really cool because it sort of, for somebody like me who's had 3 decades to love and watch that other film, to go into this and not know where they're going to go with it was what I wanted. That's what I want out of any remake. I want to see something different. If you're going to retell a story, tell us something different about it, or show us something in a different way. And I feel like they did a great job of doing that. The other thing I have to say is I really love Christopher Young's score. His score for this is fantastic, and he has done scores for movies like Drag Me to Hell, Sinister. Fantastic composer. He did Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. Just an amazing composer, and I loved his music. I was really curious like how this was going to play out because Elliot Goldenthal's score is so iconic and haunting, but this one is equally haunting, just in a different way. If there was any weaknesses for this film for me, they're very small. I don't want to get overly critical, but the thing for me that didn't work as well was Pascal. Brad Greenquist as Pascal in the original was so iconic. In this one, I felt like Pascal was just kind of an afterthought. There was a couple of moments with him, but I just didn't feel like he had the impact that he did in the original film. No disrespect to the actor Obessa Ahmed, I believe that's how you say his name. I almost felt like that character wasn't really necessary. The other character, a lot of people were saying that Zelda was much more terrifying in this remake as opposed to the original, and I disagree with that. There were some really interesting differences to this in terms of showing Zelda and the relationship between her and Rachel. But I just still feel like Zelda in that original film is still one of the most haunting things I've ever seen. And as much as it did, there were some elements to this new film with Zelda that worked, it still didn't impact me or terrify me as much as that original did. Another element about the film that I didn't think was as powerful as the original was Church. Even though I thought that the cats they had in this film were amazing. It sort of bothered me because the cat looked like a kind of grayish version of my cat Dracula, so that really bothered me. But besides that, I felt like the effects with Church in the original, where they had his eyes glowing, was a really amazing effect when he came back from the dead, and they didn't do that as much in this movie. So that was something that I just didn't think was translated as well. Even though there were some really good moments with Church and Ellie, which wasn't in the original, I thought that the effect of Church looking evil was done better in Mary Lambert's film. The other big thing for me that was missing was the relationship between Judd and Lewis. Like I said, Judd and Ellie have a really great relationship that's very strong, and I felt like Lewis and Judd, that got lost in the shuffle a little bit, and that was unfortunate because that dynamic, that bond between those two men in that original film was one of the hearts of the film, and it was missing here. But I understood they wanted to go in a different direction. And one final thing that kind of bugged me was the burial grounds. One thing, they didn't refer to it as Micmac. That was something that was not mentioned in this. There were other little touches that worked really well, but I didn't feel the presence of the grounds was so well done in Lambert's film that in this film it just didn't feel as strong. I don't know why. It was cool, the look and everything, but the look of the burial ground just didn't have as much of a presence or a character as it did in the original film. I don't know why, but it just didn't for me. So yeah, nothing really bad to say about this film. I'm surprised because I've been a naysayer for it for a long time, but I have to say, if you're going to go into this film, go in with an open mind. Don't go in expecting a carbon copy of the original. For me, the original is still the best. I love it, absolutely love it. But I will buy this one. I will rewatch it. I am glad that it turned out to be as good as it was. Performances in this are fantastic, especially by Jason Clarke, John Lithgow, and Jate Lawrence. All three of them just make this film shine. And the directors did a fantastic job with it, and I absolutely love the music, and I was very surprised by the outcome of this film. So if I had to give the remake of Pet Sematary a rating, I would give it 4.5 skulls. So that is my review of Pet Sematary. I hope everyone enjoyed this. I hope everyone will share their thoughts in the comment section below if they've seen it. Please no spoilers, because I know this movie just came out and I don't want it to spoil it for anybody. But I appreciate everyone taking the time to watch this video. Thank you so much. And if you guys want to check me out, I have my social media links down below. I got Instagram, Facebook, and my Patreon. If you guys are interested in helping support this channel, it would really mean a lot to me. And I promise there's some really cool stuff that's coming up real soon. I hope everyone will stay tuned for that, and I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy, stay scared as always. have a Patreon page if everybody wants to help support me. The link is down below. And if you do help support me, Dracula here will get more treats, and Dracula really loves his treats. So any support that you can give me would be very, very much appreciated. Right, Drac?